Good morning. I'm Eric Stuckey, Franklin City Administrator. And on behalf of the Franklin community, I want to thank you and tell you how honored we are to be with you and to be considered for All-America City recognition. In the brief time we have together today, we want to focus on a few aspects of Franklin's story as we work together to build a vibrant, inclusive, and caring community. Franklin is a historic city, founded in 1799, and the site of a major battle in the American Civil War. And we recognize that the way we talk about our history affects who we are today, but more importantly, who we aspire to be in the future. And like many towns in the South, we have a Confederate monument in our city square. In the wake of the Charlottesville tragedy in 2017, our city, our community came together to discuss how we could tell our story more authentically, more inclusively, something we now call the Fuller story. With me now is Eric Jacobson, a historian and the CEO of the Battle of Franklin Trust. Eric, tell us about the initiative, Fuller Story Initiative, and how it came about.
Well, the Fuller Story, as Eric mentioned, began in the aftermath of the tragic events at Charlottesville, and I and several others got together and wanted to try and prevent anything like Charlottesville from happening in our streets and to our town. The Battle of Franklin was a horrific event that really reshaped this community, but for almost 120 years, much of the story right here in the square revolved solely around the Confederate monument. And I and others were aware that there was a tremendous other rich history that deserved to be told, and much of it had been ignored for a long time. In fact, much of it had been erased. And this African-American story, enslaved people, freed people, striving to have their place at the table, we felt was very important. And because of issues with ownership, who owned what, state laws, we decided that we wanted to, instead of tear something down, we wanted to put something up. And we felt that this was the best path for our town. We also feel that it could be a model for other communities to confront their past and to understand what it means to our future. Was there opposition? Yes, there were people who thought the monument should go. There were others who thought nothing should be added. But we worked with a wide variety of people in the community, our partners at the Heritage Foundation, the African American Heritage Society, Carter House, Carnton, and our greatest partner, the city of Franklin, in trying to create a vision for the present and for the future to include all elements of this great American experiment. And so we proudly unveiled a series of interpretive markers in the fall of 2019, which helped tell this African-American story and how people once enslaved were freed by the war and how they struggled in the years after. And so that's really the first step. And now I'd like to let you see some of the great moments from that day last October.
Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt.
I stand here today to let you know that Franklin, Tennessee will be known for being the birthplace of the Fuller story.
This is your history. This is all of our history. It belongs to all of us. All of us. And as I look out on this crowd, I can see countless people's faces whose history has too long been ignored.
I pray that the example we provide today to our world, a world that is far too focused on division and difference, will take note. We accept one another. We humbly tell the Fuller story that honors all of us and builds a better community. Thank you.
That was a great day, an important day, but the work continues. With me now is another one of the founders of the Fuller Story Initiative, Pastor Chris Williamson. Chris, tell us what's next.
Thank you, Eric. As I stand here in the center of our city square, just behind me is our historic courthouse. And during the Civil War, that actual courthouse stood, and the Union Army occupied that courthouse. And when they occupied it, they put a provost office in the basement of that courthouse. And slaves from all over the region escaped, came to this courthouse, went into that basement to gain their paperwork, to become soldiers in the United States Army. And when they went in slaves, they came out soldiers so that they could go to Nashville and join the Federal Army. I mean, I tell you, that is amazing. And so I'm so excited that next year, around Juneteenth weekend, we're going to place a statue of a United States colored troop soldier right in front of that historic courthouse. This is phenomenal. You see, we're going to make this statue about 7 feet tall so that those who come and visit our city can look that soldier in his eye and see his value, his dignity, and his worth. And I want to thank every donor in our community who helped us reach our goal of $150,000 in order to fund this project. And we did it in a matter of months. And I also want to thank our mayor, our board of aldermen who stood behind the Fuller Story project unanimously. We couldn't have done it without them. So we are excited because this project is bringing our city together.
And bringing together is what we're all about. And one of our major partners in doing that, and our partner in the All America City application, is Franklin Tomorrow. And we work to bring our community together in so many ways. And I want to throw it to Mindy Tate, Executive Director of Franklin Tomorrow, to tell you some more aspects of Franklin's work together. Mindy?
Thanks, Eric. I'm Mindy Tate, Executive Director of Franklin Tomorrow. We're up here in E Spaces above the square with Franklin Mayor Ken Moore and our Franklin Tomorrow Board Chair, Alina Bell. Alina, come this way. So Franklin Tomorrow's mission is to engage the community, foster collaboration, and advocate for a shared vision for the future of Franklin. We do that by being a partner with the City of Franklin in a number of events, but also with a number of other organizations and through some of the events that we hold. Tell us a little bit about how we work together with the community.
For the last 20 years, we have been coming together and bringing our community members with us as we have events like Breakfast with the Mayors and Frank Talks, as well as initiatives like Get Fit Franklin, Walk with the Mayor, and On the Table. And speaking of On the Table, we had over 1,000 members come together and from 30 different zip codes just to dine with each other, have conversation, and get to know each other. Something rare.
Thanks so much, Alina. Mayor Moore, you are active in our events like Breakfast with the Mayors, but you really like Get Fit Franklin. The health of our community is important. Why?
Well, absolutely. The health of our community is important because a healthy workforce is a very productive economy. This was brought to our attention through Governor Haslam. We were named a healthier community, and we determined 4 different parameters that were important to us as far as the health of the community.
Tell us what those 4 parameters are before we see a video.
Obesity, tobacco cessation, activity, and lastly, mental health initiatives.
Well, we're going to watch a video about some of the activities and events of Franklin Tomorrow in partnership with the city and other organizations. We'll roll the video. Franklin Tomorrow is a community visioning organization. We've been around for over 15 years, and so On the Table seemed like an easy way and a fun way to bring people together. One of the great things about On the Table is it's centered around food, a dining experience, and once you introduce food into a meeting, it becomes a gathering, and people tend to relax and feel more comfortable to share their ideas and share their thoughts.
Franklin Tomorrow is a visioning organization for our community that visions that better health in our community makes better employees and helps companies be more productive. And this is an important initiative that me as the mayor and also Franklin Tomorrow are working on to promote health in our community. And part of getting healthy is getting out and being more active.
Thanks for that video. Mayor, we sure had a lot of fun back in those days when we could all be together for those events, but we're looking forward to being able to do that again. But it really stresses how communities work together to take care of each other, right? Through programs like Get Fit, Find Hope Franklin. Why are you so involved in the health of our community?
Well, being a physician, number one, but again, it's important that we have a healthy workforce. You know, we have lots of companies here, and they want the healthiest, most productive workers that they can have. And a healthy workforce is very productive.
And it creates a happy community, right?
Well, I think if you watch that Walk More with the Mayor video, you're going to see a lot of smiles and people having a lot of fun and learning who each other is.
Thanks so much. And we are so excited to have been nominated, Franklin, and we are so excited to be part of the All America City contest this year. We're ready to take your questions, and we're ready to tell you what it means to be a Franklinite.
Fantastic. Thank you.
We're going to switch camera angles and come over here.
Thank you so much, Franklin. And we're going to get some questions, and I'll ask the first question, and then Mayor Tuck will be on deck. My question for you is, what advice would you have for other cities or other communities that are grappling with the issue of Confederate and other controversial historical monuments and displays? You've clearly been thinking and working on this issue. What are some of the things that you've learned, and what are some pieces of advice you might have for other communities?
It certainly is an ongoing process, but let me have Chris Williamson and Eric Jacobson, who are critical in that process and very engaged in the many, many discussions that have happened and continue to happen around the Fuller story. And the questions about advice in grappling with history and these types of issues.
Well, it was important for us to make sure that we were proactive so that we would not have to later be reactive as a community. And so after the events of Charlottesville 3 years ago, we all got together so that we could put a plan together and make sure that something destructive like that couldn't happen in our city. So we wanted to unite as opposed to dividing. And we felt that the Fuller story was the method for us to do that, especially as it pertains to telling stories that are usually not known concerning the African-American experience before, during, and after the Civil War.
I think that's well said. I think one of the issues that we confronted right away was, if the Confederate monument was removed, well, then what next? And I think that's what a lot of cities have struggled with. They've taken that step, but then what's plan B? Well, we decided that we wanted to make plan B plan A, and we wanted to really try and confront all the elements of our past. And the enslaved story, the story of Black men who became U.S. soldiers, is one that's so unknown, and we want it to be known. We want their story, those 180,000 men who fought literally for their freedom and for the preservation of the Union, to be told.
And representation is so important for African Americans to come downtown and see someone who is not only imperative in their history, but also someone who looks like them. And so when school children come and they learn the story of the Civil War from a more balanced and holistic historical approach, they can't help but leave the square with a greater sense of pride.
Thank you. Thank you. Fantastic and really difficult work. Next, we'll get a question from Mayor Tuck, and then Paula and Jim will be on deck.
I want to commend you on your Fuller story. It's just amazing, and I did some numbers in my head, and you've got an 80,000 person population, 6% African American, so it's like 4,800 people, and yet you would make this very proactive step to put a monument as well as other kind of markers. I want to ask you, tell me about Unite Williamson and how that's working.
So, Unite Williamson, tell us a little bit about that and the partnership there.
Well, Unite Williamson resulted after the shooting at Mother Emanuel AME Church in Charleston. And one of our local pastors happened to be friends with some of the members there. And he called a prayer vigil. He and I both shared a vision that day that our community needed to have some type of event where we brought the community together. We initially focused on prayer, But as we brought people together and discussed it, we found that it was important for people to understand who their neighbors were, people of different skin color, people of different religions. And so the first year prayer breakfast had many, many different folks who typically we wouldn't see at a chamber meeting or something of that nature. It started with 300 people the first year. Last year, over 500 people. And kind of the most important thing that happened that day in my mind was that one of our speakers said, stand up and take out your cell phone and exchange your information with somebody you don't know. And so that's been very valuable to help us learn who our neighbors are, whether they're Muslims, whether they're African Americans, whether they're Asian, to know who our neighbors are in our community.
And in our effort to collaborate, which is our kind of middle mission, we served as the nonprofit to help create Unite Williamson until they could secure their own 501c3. So we were partners together on that, and I continue to serve on the Unite Williamson committee.
All right, great. Let's get Jim and then, I'm sorry, Paula and then Jim.
Hi there, y'all. I'm calling in from Charleston, South Carolina, so I feel very kindred to some of this. What I'm wondering is, and recognizing that the community is 85% white, as Mayor Tuck mentioned, what ongoing dialogues about equity or reparations or reconciliation? I'm just sort of curious to know kind of what the state of dialogue is around these issues now that you are tackling the symbols and getting to know one another. What might be next, or does there need to be something next? I'm curious.
Well, I'll just mention our On the Table experience that we held in 2018 and 2019. We had about 1,000 people participate that first year in over 30 different locations. And those conversations were very free ranging. And then of that first year with 1,000 people, over 400 participated in the post-event survey to tell us their feelings and their thoughts. But Eric, I mean, just the discussion.
Well, the work continues. And one of the things that's happened in the wake of George Floyd's death and some of the dialogue that all communities have had is people began to learn more about the Fuller story and other things that have already happened. Plus, they're asking questions about how they plug in. There are groups that have popped up to bring folks together and have more dialogue. And both the city, Franklin Tomorrow, and and various groups across the community are coming together. Let me ask Chris or Eric to add to that.
Well, as you mentioned, after the murder of George Floyd, our community got together for a candlelight prayer vigil, and over 2,000 people came out for that. And coming out of that was a coalition that was birthed called the Franklin Justice and Equity Coalition, where we spent time getting to know the members of the police department, the police chief, and the commissioner. We just spent time getting to build relationships and understanding how systems work. Also, we're meeting with people who are over the school board to make sure that we understand inequity and justice issues within the school system. And so we're pulling the community together to talk about voting, all kinds of things. So it's just not coming together, but we're also trying to deal with issues that hinder us from moving forward.
Thanks. I just want a point of personal privilege. I just wanted to acknowledge how much I value seeing the recognition that equity is white people's work too. And I think having a message to white communities about that is helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Paula, and thank you, Franklin. Next, I think have time for one last quick question from Jim.
Okay, I'll try to make this quick. I'm a big fan of organizations like Franklin Tomorrow as an ongoing catalyst and convener. You don't often find them in cities the size of Franklin. Quite often they're born out of some kind of crisis. I've been to Franklin, it's a wonderful community. What would have been the catalyst for forming an organization like this, and how could there be a lesson for other communities?
Well, I'll speak to that. We've got several of our board members here and Alina Bell, our board chair. But this is our 20th anniversary. And Franklin Tomorrow was founded by a group of business and community leaders with strong support from our elected officials 20 years ago to make sure what made Franklin special then would be still available to people who came to live in Franklin or lived in Franklin today and tomorrow. That's why our name is Franklin Tomorrow. We do a lot of things that impact today, but it's about tomorrow and our future. Right, Alina?
Yes, and we try to make sure we're not just focused on business leaders, but we're focused on the entire community, making sure we're collaborating with pockets from areas of food insecurity with our One Generation Away and Grace Works, as well as with the school district, and making sure the school district also, the family members feel a part of anything that Franklin Tomorrow is doing. And we keep our lens also on making sure we're bringing up that next generation so that they can be leaders in our community as well.
We kind of think of ourselves as the People's Chamber of Commerce a little bit, but we work closely with the actual chamber and certainly with the city.
And I would just add, from the city perspective, Franklin Tomorrow can engage in discussions and bring people together in a way that just the city may not be as positioned to do. We're at the table with them, but they can engage and bring in a broader cross section and in a different feel than maybe a governmental type setting. So it's an amazing partnership and one we're very, very thankful for.
All right. Well, Franklin, Tennessee, we are thankful for the difficult work and the really difficult conversations and the way that you have brought in history that represents stories that are so seldom told, and for the difficult work and ongoing work that you're doing there, as well as Franklin Tomorrow, not only planning for tomorrow, but doing that work today. So thank you so much for all of your work and for being an All-America City finalist.
Thank you.
Yes, congratulations, Franklin, on a well-executed presentation there. Again, can encourage you to keep following along with us in other presentations throughout the day. We have Festival of Ideas for you all this afternoon. And of course, don't miss the award ceremony this evening. For those of you following along on Facebook, we're now going to take a brief break in our program until we hear from our next community, which will be Pitt County, North Carolina. That will happen at 10:15 Mountain Time or 12:15 Eastern Time, and we hope to see you back. Thank you.